Lilly Martin Spencer was brought to the United States in 1830 by her mother and father from England. The progressive French couple settled down in a little town of Marietta, Ohio. Then only being known as Lilly Marie Martin, she grew up embracing her artistic ways and having a supportive family to help do so, but soon enough outgrew the resources that Marietta had to offer her. Knowing only a little town could give so much, her father decided to take her to the closest biggest city that would further his daughter's education and training in the arts. Cincinnati at the time was booming with creative artists and with more resources available for Spencer. Her father set her up to study under an artist named John Inscoe Williams. Soon after her time training with Williams, she realized she took to genre painting a lot more than any other types of painting styles and wanted to bring her lighthearted, progressive views for women into the art world. As a young woman in the arts, she would study street vendors and put her own twist on American-style genre painting. With the prominent interest in Western American art, Spencer used her sense of humor to put her on the map, making her the talk of the town. Blending themes like everyday life with family and domestic life, home life of an average housewife, these themes is what she set her sights on in her paintings in a way that would help end classism, and for once see equality with women in the art world. Using a lot of these same themes, not only did she change the free market for painters in general, but she only slightly changed the way women were seen in the art world, playing into a role that wouldn't radically help future female artists. But as she painted, she continued to preach institutions how women should be more integrated into other types of paintings and not just be stuck to one. While training in Cincinnati, Spencer's talent did not go unnoticed. Patrons from near and far would come to have her paint for them themes of family life and things that would go great within the home rather than huge religious pieces that would hang in a church. But as good as luck as she did have, not all paintings sold. The ones that were left not sold, she pushed to exhibits to be seen. She figured more people who saw her uncommissioned work would see some sort of talent in her that they would come to commission something from her. At the end of the day, it was nothing but good exposure for her. One patron that was consistent about buying work from her was Nicholas Longworth. His patronage was so important because most women artists did not have the funds to go abroad and would jump at the chance to do so. But when tempted by Longworth twice to go, Spencer refused, confident she would make American art and not wanting to train overseas. Longworth commissioned other artists of African American descent, aspiring sculptors, and female artists that included Spencer. As he gathered all these works, he was able to open the Western Art Union. Being a self-made man in the early America, he felt like he needed to show his pride by buying up all American art and putting forth a big contribution like this work of art in the Western Art Union collection. Spencer's paintings were something that people could relate to. With that in mind, it changed how the free market was formed around female art. With her boosting sales from paintings she painted, Spencer catered to this democratic sensibility, since that was the majority of what people believed while there in Cincinnati. She was painting what people wanted while making it a wanted commodity in order to make a sale. One of Spencer's more famous paintings is called Shake Hands. Painted in 1954, perfectly demonstrates her themes within the domestic home. It also demonstrates how using themes created a vicissitude of her social, personal, and professional life. Using her train of thought, this reflected how women were making strides in democratic equality outside the realm of politics. As the art profession continued to be dominated by males that were paid more for their artwork while having less experience than herself. But as Spencer progressed in her art career, and with this painting in particular, showed that women in art who were to make careers as artists were only seen as creative rebels that couldn't see the humor in only being a domestic housewife. All of her paintings seem to have the same themes of at-home or family relations and the humor within the family relationships. So what's the moral of Shake Hands? Historians Historians generally refer to Spencer's domestic interior as examples of sentimentalism, but she referred to them as fancy pieces. Domestic home life may have been Spencer's most popular themes, but that did not define her home life in person. She was a very independent painter. Her husband, Ben Spencer, was a happy home spouse that watched their children when she went out to paint for patrons and anyone else who had commissioned her work for the day. Most of her style had been inspired from European forerunners and contemporaries in the EU. Women were seen as objects and not serious artists, but Spencer's style also had an American precedent while turning to the domestic world into funny political satire. With overwhelming obstacles within the free market, with having to paint a moral within all her comedic paintings, and within her own academy's class-sensitive society, seemed to be too much for Spencer and the artist/humorist. As her and her family grew within the art world community, it became increasingly limited for women's economic activities. Women were not allowed to have live models, so most either went without or made do with taking their own image from a mirror and molding that image into faces of others in her artwork. She moved her and her family to Newark, New Jersey, to escape the poverty that Cincinnati had brought them, what she thought was the end of an era for American painting. New Jersey had given her the opportunity to put down roots, as she wrote home to her mother in a letter stating, "Times still continue as if they were determined to put all such things as fine arts out of existence. But at least we're able to raise some potatoes and chickens without having to pay money, and we will not run such risks of actual starvation as we used sometimes to be afraid of that in the heart of the big city." Even as a world-class painter, her and her family never made good money to support themselves, unlike her male counterparts that were comfortable knowing that they made more off a painting than she did with 3. Genius and a democratic style of thinking made Lilly Martin Spencer the savvy businesswoman she needed to be when her family was in need of funds. Only by selling paintings in an art world that never accepted her as a woman, she has become one of the strongest women in fine arts and should be recognized for her genius.